Hi, everybody. I'm sorry it took me a little longer than expected. Glad to see, well, nobody's here yet. Nobody's watching yet, but you are watching Portraits of Faith. We have a weekly series in which we get a chance to talk with wonderful people about their own faith life, about their own journey, their coming to the church, and why their faith is so important to them and the church is so important to them. And I'd like to introduce my good friend, Floss Kerr. Floss, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Father. How are you?
Good. Now,
I just finished watching you on Mass just now.
Good. As long as it
did.
ended, that stream wasn't ending. I think I messed something up with the live stream. I think it just finally ended. Thanks be to God. Because if not, it would have gone on for like 8 hours, and I don't know what I did wrong. So, Floss, first and foremost, thank you so much for joining us. This is a last second change. We had to switch some things up, and Floss worked all afternoon on trying to get here today, and she's doing a wonderful job.
I'm a little technically challenged.
No, but you're doing great, and your hair looks great. Your hair looks fantastic. She was so worried about her hair today.
In this time where you have no hairdressers or no barbers to go to, so we have to make do.
Exactly. You're looking fine. So, I guess one of the first questions that I ask of everybody that's joined us is, what is your earliest memory of faith in growing up? What was your first experience of God? Do you remember?
Well, I think, I'm like a Heinz 57. I started out as a Bible Protestant. I lived on a farm, and the houses were few and far between, and there was one little church, and I started Sunday school there.
Mm-hmm.
And that was learning the stories of the Bible as children do. And that's my earliest recollection, the stories of the Bible and singing songs that went along with the teachings every week. And I think that's probably my earliest memory.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you have a favorite Bible study growing up as a kid? Did you have a favorite story that you liked?
Probably. I can remember singing a song and help me, because my memory is not too good short term. It was about I don't know if he was a disciple. Oh, I don't think he was a disciple, but he climbed up in a sycamore tree for the Lord.
Zacchaeus.
Zacchaeus.
Mm-hmm.
For the Lord he wanted to see, and I remember singing that, and that was like a very early story. But Noah building the ark, as an animal lover, that was a great story to me. Joseph in the coat of many colors. There were so many that when the Lord appeared in the burning bush. I mean, there were just so many stories, and I really got a very good background.
Was your family particularly faith-filled? I mean, they took you to Bible school, of course, but
yes, my father was a farmer, and he worked from dawn till dusk.
Mm-hmm.
And I was only 7 when he passed away, so I don't have too many memories of him. But my mother was a very faithful person, and I think that I get a lot of her strength and her belief through her.
Mm-hmm. That must have been kind of tough as a young child, losing your dad so young. Where was your faith life like at that? Did it test your faith? Were was that a hindrance to you? Your dad passing away with your relationship with God? Were you angry at God?
No, no, not at all. I was too young to begin with. I really didn't understand the finality of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, and as I said, the church was like the place that we went for. We had like that was our outing. Not
Mm-hmm.
only the church on Sunday, but they had lots of activities for the kids and families together. So we were able, that was, where we gathered. And so I looked forward to going to church to be with others. And it was just, like I said, I didn't quite understand, the finality of my father passing.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother, like I said, she had such great faith. My dad was only 50 years old and she was 48. And she just, as we do with children, you sit down and she talked to me about it in my own, words that I could understand. And like I said, and to this day, even with other people in my life passing, I'm not angry at God at all
Mm-hmm.
for that. I know He has a plan, and the strength that my mother gave me, it just has carried on with me. And I'm so thankful for that.
Well, that's great. That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I guess, was there any period, I know as you grow up, sometimes when people get a little bit older, they kind of feel their oats a little bit. They might
Yes.
wander or
Yes.
stray a little bit from their
Mm-hmm.
faith. Was there ever a period of time in your life
Yes.
for that for you?
In my teen years, church was just going to church.
Mm-hmm.
You went to church because I had to, it seemed. If you didn't go to church, you didn't go out. and, and that seemed and I didn't really stray away from the church, but it wasn't something that I don't want to say look forward to, but it was just wasn't on my agenda at the
Mm-hmm.
time.
Okay.
There was other things more important. And so I did, by that time, my mother had remarried, and I went from the Bible Protestant church to the Methodist church because it was a very small town.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it was a big city to me, being from the farm, but I was from a small town. So, and the Methodist church was right there, and I went with my best friend every Sunday. But they weren't. That church wasn't as family oriented. It didn't seem as the church I came from in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning. And my father was an Episcopalian. My mother became an Episcopalian when she married him. And after he passed, I went to church with her. So, and I later met my husband, who was Catholic. And I said I was like one step away from being a Catholic, I felt, for being Episcopalian.
Well,
Until
a
I
lot
knew.
of times people say that the Anglican Church, or the American version of it, the Episcopalian Church, is
Uh-huh.
Catholic light. So,
Uh-huh. Really? And and my husband, we married, was at the time, it was a little chapel. It was called the Church of All Faiths. And the two ministers who married us, the one baptized me, and the other one was the minister at the first church I went to, the Bible Protestant church.
okay.
So, and we had the marriage blessed and Our Lady of Lourdes. However, and it just seemed like time went on, and we talked about me joining the Catholic Church. But my husband was very lenient. He would go to my church, I would go to his church. And, we just, it didn't really change until later in life. And then we started going to the Catholic Church. But then I couldn't receive communion.
Right. Well,
And that
I'm going to take a,
bothered me.
well, that's good. That's good. But let's take a step back for a second.
Uh-huh.
You have had such varying experiences of 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 different sects of Christianity, right? You
Yes.
started off with a Bible kind of quasi
Protestant.
fundamentalist, right?
Yes.
Evangelical church. Then you
Mm-hmm.
went to Methodism, and then to the Episcopalians. What were some of the things that in your mind were the thread that, and also to the, of course, your experience with the Catholic Church with your husband. What were the things that kind of carried through with all of them? And if you could think about it now, what was the big difference between the Catholicism and all the others, if you can identify that?
Okay. The ways they were the same, I could link the Bible Protestant to the Methodist. Bible Protestant, they were very conservative. The Methodists seemed less conservative, but they were spreading the same gospel, the same word, in the
Mm-hmm.
same type. Um, like I said, the Episcopal and the Catholic Church seemed almost identical to me until I started to realize as I got older and I joined the church, Catholic Church. I used to say, well, the only thing we don't do is we don't bless ourselves. But then I found out, about confession and the Eucharist being the body and blood of Jesus. So that was different. Also, jumping back to the Bible Protestant and Methodist Church, for me myself, we were taught about the birth of Jesus and Mary being his mother, but then that was all. That was as far as it went,
Mm-hmm.
as far as I can remember. Now, you know, I might be wrong as far as that goes, but in my memory, that's all I knew. Mary was Jesus' mother,
Mm-hmm.
and Joseph was his father. But I didn't, and it hasn't been until the past year and a half that I really got the message that Mary is the Queen of Heaven to me,
Mm-hmm.
and the Queen of really the world, being Jesus' mother.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that story.
Okay.
We'll
So
get to that story.
you have to shut me up.
No. These are good things. So let's talk about it. How did you become Catholic? How did you eventually come to the Catholic Church?
Okay. So when my husband was sick, he wanted me to join, and I wanted to, but I really couldn't go through the lessons and everything.
Because he was so sick.
So after he passed away, I became friends with Barbara. She was working at in Glassboro, St.
Bridget's.
Bridget's, thank you, church. And I helped her out when they had dinners and so forth. And I met.
Now, how did you meet? So
Okay.
did you
Barbara?
meet? Yep. Now, was your husband was buried out of St. Bridget's, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And is that how the
And
two
his
of you met?
family's buried there, but there weren't any plots left by the time, we were.
Right.
So I met Barbara. She was working at the office at that time. And
Mm-hmm.
so mutual friend called her, and she helped me. She talked to Father Matthew and met with him. And like I said, there wasn't any. We made the plans and everything for the funeral, but he couldn't be buried there. And poor Barbara, she walked the whole cemetery trying to find something, but there wasn't anything. So anyhow, we just had an instant connection, and I asked her if she would help me pick out this readings, and I knew what songs and so forth. And
Mm-hmm.
And she met with me with Father Matthew, and that's how we got. And from then on, we just became friends. And she was kind of what I wanted to be. I mean, she was such a faithful person and such a good person. And, she had such faith. She was really an inspiration to me.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, isn't it, that it was that very difficult moment in your life with the loss of your husband, that God used that moment to bring
for us to
you
cross paths
and to bring you forward,
Yeah. And it was for my husband wanting me, and I did too. I wanted to become Catholic, but he really wanted me to. And it was like him reaching down or God reaching down and say, okay, this is it. This is your chance. And from meeting and then like I said, I started to help her out when she cooked dinners for different people. And the people were just so nice. When I met you and Father Goyette and Father Matthew, the deacons, and I thought, and then even the bishop, and I thought, these are the kind of people I want to be around, because they were just wonderful people. And everyone I met, and I knew a lot of people from St. Bridget's from having their children, their parent in school. And so I thought, this is meant to be.
So what was instruction like? What was the RCIA process for you?
Well, it was really nice the first two lessons because we did them in Hawaii. Because they were starting and we had plans to go to Hawaii. So Barbara gave me my 2 instructions in Hawaii that week. And they were all teasing us about that. But I learned a lot about mortal sins, and I had no idea, that there were different kinds of sins, and how I knew sin could be forgiven, of course, but there are different circumstances to the different types of sin.
Was there a difficult concept? In other words, was there something that was Catholic that was really hard for you to kind of get your head around?
Probably the confession, because I always believed, and it took me a while for that too, because I always said, I'm just going to go, I say my prayers straight to God. He's the one.
Right.
I'm going right to him. And, and then when I got sick, I started to read about Mary, and I thought, there's something more to this.
Right.
And
now, you came into the church before you got sick, correct?
Yes.
Right. So I just want before we get to because that story is great in itself. Okay. I want to say that, like, I don't want you to. There's this concept. It's called burying the lead. We're not going to bury the lead.
Okay. We have to have a tease. Huh?
We have to have a tease. We got a little tease. So you're going through instruction now. How many people were in your class in RCIA? Do you remember?
I'd say about 20. And from young to, I'd say older people too.
Okay.
From all walks of life. So we all were there together, and we all learned together. I took my instructions at Our Lady Queen of Peace.
Okay.
Father Maz, because that's where Barbara had belonged, and she said, that I should go there, because, and I figured she knew what she was talking about. She usually does. And so I signed up there, and we met Deacon John and Irene, not Irene, what's his wife's name?
Irene Casey.
And he was great.
Talk to me about the Easter Vigil. You
Oh
know,
my gosh.
yeah. I
It
mean,
was
now first, little theology lesson
okay.
that as somebody who's already validly baptized, which you were, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Easter Vigil, technically speaking, wasn't for you. That you could have been
Yeah.
once you got your instruction and once you were
Right.
grounded and everything, and once you could have been brought into the church at any time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just oftentimes that the way parishes work in the modern age is like, well, might as well lump everybody together. But really,
Well, it
it's
was nice too. It was nice to be
oh,
included.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. But it's the rite of Christian initiation for adults. Well, you're already initiated into the Christian
Yes.
life by the virtue of a vow baptism. So,
Mm-hmm. But I think
um,
I would have been missing. I wanted to see everything. I would have felt like I was missing out
mhm.
on the end of it because I was chosen as one of the 12 that uh, Father Maz washed their feet.
Oh, what was that like?
That was really humbling. Um, and of course, because I'm sure it was because Barbara, she went there and she probably put it in for me that way. But but that was really a humbling experience.
Mhm.
And of course, when we were welcome into the church, I just lost it.
Okay, tell me about the Easter Vigil. What was the Easter Vigil like for you?
Oh, it was just beautiful. It was the most beautiful. It was just the most beautiful experience I think I've ever been through. I mean, the priest, Father Maz, it was like he was speaking to each one of us individually. He, it was just, it was just like seeing the resurrection with your own eyes almost.
Mhm.
It was just beautiful.
Well,
It
that was a
was
wonderful moment.
it was of course getting married, that was a beautiful moment
Oh,
too,
no, no,
but
no, well, I understand. I understand. I
I don't
understand.
want to leave that out, but it was a very spiritual moment for me,
And
and
we
I
got it.
felt like I was where I belonged. I finally roosted or landed in the right place for me.
By the way, Deacon Rich said that he was so shocked that Barbara had a hand in all of this.
I see that.
So, um,
And,
so after how long after you came into the faith that did you get your diagnosis?
let's see. Was diagnosed in the fall of 2018, and I joined the church probably 2 years ahead of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, for the people that don't know, what were you diagnosed with?
I had ovarian cancer
Okay. Now,
and a spot on my lung.
mhm.
Um, and I went through chemo for a year, and today is my anniversary of my last chemo treatment.
Well,
And
congratulations.
yes, I have my little bottle of, let me get this straight here. Which way am I going?
Yeah.
My little bottle of champagne. Since I'm quarantined, I'll have to celebrate on my own. But I'll share it with you.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. So I said, and when I was talking to Barbara earlier, I said, this couldn't have come at a better time that
Mhm.
you asked me to do this, because I said it's my anniversary.
Well, that's great.
And
So, so how did your faith, and especially
oh
your newly
gosh,
grounded faith in the Catholic Church, help you through your illness?
from beginning to end. First off, I was in shock. So that all happened. I got what I needed to have done as far as operation, and them telling me what I had to do and so forth. I mean, they had to tell me what they told me, because I was just in shock.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got home and I went to rehab, and I was still having a lot done for me. In rehab, of course, they take you 3 times a day, and everything was done for me. And little by little, I got to be doing little things on my own. And then came home, and the nurses were here, the physical therapist, had 3 nurses a day. But it was at nighttime, when I wasn't busy, that I started to really, because at that point I didn't know what was coming,
Mm-hmm.
what tomorrow was going to bring. And I would get in bed, and I just started to pray, and I would pray and pray and pray. And I never questioned, I knew that, God is not a mean God. He didn't do this to me on purpose, pick me out of and say, well, you haven't been a very good person, I'm going to do this to you. So I never blamed God for that. And again, that was, the teachings I had from my mother. And I just prayed, Father Rob. And then Barbara gave me a little prayer card from Prayer to Mary.
Okay, and this is where we're going. This is the good part. So
Mm-hmm.
you, through your illness, grew to have a devotion to our Blessed Mother.
Yes.
Can you talk
Mm-hmm.
about that?
Yeah. And like I said, I always believed. I always knew God would be there. He's always watching over me and take care of me. But I was afraid. I was really afraid, because of course I only had my nephew to really take care of me, as
Mm-hmm.
far as taking me to doctors and things. The rest of my family was in Florida, and Barbara would come every night after work. But so I got this little prayer card, and matter of fact, still think I have it in my wallet. I take it with me. And I started to pray it, and then I started to look up different prayers to Mary, and I just kind of gravitated to her, because it said, "Never was it known that anyone who asked for your protection would be denied." And I would read this and over and over every night.
The memorare.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
we do have a question in the midst of all this, so I'm just going to put it up there.
okay.
So Deacon asks, so how did you pray, and what did you pray for when you were sick?
Well, I don't know how I prayed. I just prayed, but I prayed for strength, especially to Mary. I prayed for because it's my prayers have changed since then, but I prayed to keep myself focused, for God to keep me focused on my path, and to give me strength physically and mentally.
Mm-hmm.
That was, I didn't pray to get better. I wanted to get better, of course, but I didn't pray to get better. I just wanted to get myself in a frame of mind that would give me the strength that I needed to get through the days that were coming. Because I really didn't start my chemo. I got out of rehab in November. I didn't start chemo till January, because
Mm-hmm.
my body had to heal a little from the operation. So I just prayed for him to be with me and get me through the night. So everybody, Satan was the most afraid of Mary. Mary had the strength over Satan. So I would pray to Mary for her to keep Satan out of my mind and my thoughts, because I thought, if I let him get into my head, this is not going to be a good thing.
Now you said that your prayer is different now. The way you pray now is different than what you prayed then. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I pray. I say prayers of thankfulness every night, and prayers of for the Lord blessing me, for the daily blessings. I pray every day, that every morning, that He has let me see a new day, and blessings that He has bestowed upon me, and throughout the day. It's just really prayers of thankfulness, and that I can do things in my life that would help others. And like when I was sick, they'd say, "Do you need anything?" And I would say, "Just your prayers. Just pray for me," to everybody. And then when I got better, they said, "Oh, you're doing so good." I said, it was your prayers. It was all those prayers. And I said, "Please don't stop." And then with you putting the glove of Padre Pio on me and blessing me, I truly felt that, worked miracles.
Now you also received the sacrament of the sacrament of the sick, correct?
I don't remember.
I'm sure we gave you the anointing of the sick. I'm sure I anointed you.
Okay.
So, well, if you don't remember it, it worked. It worked.
I'm so sorry to be so brutally honest, but
it's okay. It's okay. It's totally all right. It's totally all right. So, I just want to put this comment up because it was from something earlier. Bonnie, well, that's a big comment. So she came into the church when she was 73 years old. Through EWTN and Mother Angelica, also another devotion to the Blessed Mother, Mother Teresa, and prayed when she was also sick. But her faith helped her through. So there, you've got a kindred spirit. So,
yep. I mean, that's and I always say, I don't judge people, but I don't know how people can get through circumstances like that without some kind of faith. Oh my golly.
He just wanted to say hello.
Somebody wants your attention.
Yeah, he does.
Hi, you pretty boy.
You okay, bud? Somebody says hi.
He said, "I want some snacks."
He's like, "I want some you time. We want a PLAY." So,
yeah.
buddy, you got to just got to hang in there for a little bit, okay? Got to be a good boy. Be a good boy for Dado. So what's life for you now? Like, we talked about the early conversion to the Catholic Church, and what that was like really early on, and how like your burgeoning faith kind of developed, as life got through. I don't know if you remember this, but you said something to me one time about your faith, about being Catholic, and that you became Catholic for a very particular reason, considering everything that happened to you. Do you remember that? Do you remember what you said to me?
No.
You said that your whole life prepared you, and coming into the church, the Catholic Church, prepared you because you needed that type of faith, a devotion to our Blessed Mother. You needed the power of the Eucharist to help get you through, and that you wouldn't have been able to have done it unless you were Catholic. That your faith in the church really was like God preparing you. He brought you to the church because that was the way that He was going to lead you through this.
I think so. I truly, with all my heart, believe that. I know I couldn't have gotten through it without him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and just walking into a church now, I feel like I feel like God's right there with me, and I just feel like I'm in a different world.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, he is there with me, but, and I feel such peace that I've never felt before. And, my mother used to say, I forget what, peace passes all understanding, or there was some kind of saying she used to say. And now I understand it. You can try and sit and figure things out all you want and figure how I'm going to do this or how I'm going to do that. But until you let go and let God take over and know that He's in control and He'll take care of you, that's when you find peace.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I found in the Catholic religion. I found, it's just a peace that I can't describe. And knowing that the priest is up at the altar, it's so much more formal, and I like that. The more conservative, the priest is at the altar representing the people and speaking the word in his voice from God. And I just really, and I like the uniformity of it all.
Mm-hmm. That you can go to, like, while the, a lot of the Bible churches, it depends on the pastor and
Mm-hmm.
focus, that they can be very, very different depending on
Mm-hmm.
the minister. Um, Absolutely, let go and let God. Thank you, Bonnie.
Aw.
But also too,
It's more universal, the
right.
church
No
is.
matter where you go, like I know, like Protestant sects can tend to be also too personality driven. But even
Mm-hmm.
though, like, let's face it, there's some priests that have different styles to them, one way or
Sure,
another.
sure.
That we still have this, that universalism, that you can go to any mass in the whole entire world, regardless of what language it's in, and it still be the same thing.
Mm-hmm. That's
So,
true.
so Kit, who's gotten home from the novena, says that there's an old spiritual titled "Prayer is the Key." So,
Aw. I know Kit. Hi, Kit.
so what's your faith like now, and what's the church? What does church mean to you now, especially with all, as we say, in general, with everything that's going on, what's
Oh,
faith in the
my.
church mean to you now?
Oh, gosh. Well, let's see. The faith, well, the church is my foundation.
Hmm.
Um, I, it gives me strength. My faith gives me strength to live every day and to help in anywhere to my community. I was very involved with my community before I got sick. I live in a retirement community, and I was I was like the younger one. So I would be the taxi cab driver, or we take so and so the doctor or wherever they needed to go. And but definitely God's forgiveness and healing for my failings, and how He has healed me. I know I have a long way to go, but I just take it one day at a time, and
Hmm.
um, just it gives me a purpose to live, a purpose in my life, and that's basically the church, the Catholic religion gives me a purpose. And I always say when I'm praying to Mary, I always say, I would really love to meet you, but I'm not in any hurry yet. But I would really love to meet you, Mary, because she's been so good to me, And
Mhm. Now,
but
I want to talk about something else. You
mhm.
have, when we were still able to all go to mass together, you have bumped into something that you never expected in terms of the way mass is celebrated, that apparently has affected you in a particular way. Do you know what I'm
I
talking
bumped
about?
in. No, tell me. But see, with this chemo, my memory is not good.
That's okay. Mass in Latin.
Oh yes.
But
And
can
you
you talk
throw
about,
in your Latin phrases every once in a while
right?
too.
But can you talk about that experience? Because I know that's affected you in a particular way. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Um, well, I don't really know. I mean, when I go to the Latin Mass, it's a beautiful Mass, but I have a hard time following.
Yeah, it can be a little
And thank
confusing at times.
yes,
That's
thank
why they
goodness.
have missiles. You need a program to figure out where you're headed.
Thank goodness for the little prayer books, because if not, and I'm half of the time I'm half 3 or 4 pages behind.
Behind.
But it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Mass. But remind me of what it was that I said or
Well, no,
did.
because there's something like mass can be done up, and there are very different styles to mass. But if the extraordinary form, the Latin mass at times has I think a greater sense of mystery to it, and there's
Hmm.
almost even with a low mass done well, there's an exaltedness to it.
Yes.
Like when you go, like, not saying that this isn't true with the what we would call the ordinary form with mass on Sunday. But if you
Hmm.
go to the right type of Latin mass, you know you've been to something, right? Like,
Yes, you
you know,
do.
like God was honored and adored and glorified if you
Yes,
were
he
at
was,
something like that. So,
and you go out like you're floating out of the church.
right,
You really
exactly.
do. Especially when Father Anthony does it
Oh my God.
at
Yeah.
St. Gianna. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful mass.
Hmm.
And I would recommend that anybody that has never been to a Latin mass, they should, to go to one. And because I remember when I was a little girl, and a friend of my mother's was married at St. Bridget's, and it was at the old St. Bridget's Church, and it was a
Okay.
Latin mass. And I remember that, and that was a beautiful, beautiful mass. But it is definitely a mass that you remember when, like you said, when you leave that church, you're kind of on a high from it, because it's something you don't forget. I just
And I
wish
think
I
that's,
understood it a little bit more.
we'll work on that. We'll work on that. But
Okay.
it does speak to something um, that's interesting. Whether you want to participate in the form of the Catholic Church that's a little bit more traditional or not, everybody has their sweet spot, right? When
Mhm.
it comes to prayer, everybody has something that truly, other than the Eucharist, right? Because it's the Eucharist that actually feeds and nourishes us. But there's always something, regardless of the individual, that there's something in particular that feeds them. Now,
Mhm.
for you, your devotion to the Blessed Mother, experiencing the Latin Mass, it could be any number of things. So it's just, I think it's very interesting to see that regardless of who the person is, there's always something that was important.
Mhm.
For me growing up, it was really important that we prayed as a family. When
Oh yeah.
my family always went to church together, and that was something
Mhm.
important. Now, did I go to church on
Mhm.
my own as I got older? Yes. But when you go to church
Mhm.
as a family, like, that's something, and I've got a way of praying, tied into what was when I was growing up, that meant something important to me. And
Mhm.
it's the same for you, and it's same for the 19 other people plus who are watching right now. So,
Mhm. I can remember as a little tiny girl, my mother would say my prayer with me at night. and I can repeat that word for word. I mean, and
What is it? Can you
that
say
was a
now?
long time ago. It was not. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my
Okay.
soul to keep. That one, because I was a little tiny girl, and then she would pray we would pray for my parents and my brother and my grandparents, and I can still remember doing that,
Mm-hmm.
and just the way we did that every night, never let it go. We both got on our knees and prayed, and that's my sweet spot. That's a wonderful memory to me.
Mm-hmm. And
Um,
I still have some, like, we grew up and, like, God bless mommy and daddy and Frankie and Robbie. God bless Kathy. Thank you for the food we
yeah,
have in the house we live in. Amen.
uh-huh.
And that's the prayer that I prayed as a kid, for
Yeah,
like
that's the way my
two
mom.
decades almost.
I know my mom would say, "God bless Charlie and Flossie," and it was like, but that's the way, and I understood that, and but that's what we did too.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing, isn't it?
It is.
If we
So
just talk about the things that come out.
exactly. So we have about well, I mean, we're trying to shoot for an hour. We're at 46 minutes right now. Does anybody have any questions for Floss? Anything that something that struck you, something that touched you in a particular way? There's a couple of second delay between us asking questions, going up
Mm-hmm.
into the interwebs, them answering and coming back. So it's about 7 seconds from when we ask questions to anybody that might want to ask them. So if
Yeah,
anybody has,
and since I'm still learning, one of the things I thought about talking about tonight was the saints,
okay, you can talk about that. Go ahead.
and I'm still working on them because when I pray to Mary, I always ask, or I pray to Jesus. I always ask, for the animals, Saint Francis.
Hmm.
So, and then I think, oh, I don't want to hurt Jesus' feeling, thinking that St. Francis is taking over the prayer for the animals. Or it's just that I'm not sure, of what saints to pray to for certain things. So, and then,
Hmm.
you know, should I pray to the saints or should I pray to my guardian angel? Or is my guardian angel just someone that, or is that a person that just watches over me?
Floss, the answer to that question is real easy. It's yes. You pray,
Okay. Do
hey,
it
you
all.
pray to the angels, and it's very, very Catholic theology, right? It's both and, because any devotion to a saint, especially to our Blessed Mother, who's a saint, by the way, she's the queen of all
Mm-hmm.
the saints, right?
Mm-hmm.
Any important and appropriate devotion to any of the saints leads to Jesus, right?
Okay.
When you have the saints that, like, if you have so much of a devotion to the saint that the saint becomes more important than God, then guess what? Yeah, everything's a little topsy turvy, right?
Yeah.
But the answer to that question is, yeah. When you do have a devotion to the saints, and you have them in particular, right? Because you love animals, so Saint Francis of Assisi is important. You also talk about
Mm-hmm.
Padre Pio, and being blessed by
Mm-hmm.
the glove in a
Right.
certain aspect, right, from Padre Pio. Um, uh, you know, Bonnie talked about her devotion to Mother Teresa. Even Rich
Mm-hmm.
says, prayers heard no matter who you pray to, right? It all
Okay.
goes up there. Everybody's like,
I
they're
just don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
not going to hurt anybody's feelings. You're not going to hurt it. If they're in heaven, they're with God.
They're
They're
happy.
happy forever. They're never going to be hurt by anything that happens
No,
there, right?
that's true. That's true. What about better place to be?
Right. They might be a little sad, but you know what? They're with God, so everything's happy. They're not going to Oh, well, that's it. Floss, you prayed to the wrong person. Now you're not going to get into heaven. So, you don't have to worry
She's
about
praying
that.
to him and not to me. Okay.
It's like the joke. An older woman comes in to pray, and she goes down to the altar rail, and she kneels at the altar rail in church. And so she's praying, and one of the maintenance guys is up in one of the balconies, right? And so he wants to play a little trick on her. So, he knows Mary. Mary comes to church all the time. So he says in his big, 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 big voice, Mary, this is Jesus. And then, Mary's still at the altar rail praying. So he decides to go a little bit louder. Mary, this is Jesus. And Mary's just ignoring her Lord, right? So he says, Mary, this is Jesus. And Mary looks up to the heavens and says, Lord, can you be quiet for just a second? I'm trying to talk to your mother.
Okay, there you go.
So,
oh, that's cute.
Kim, who's also one of my former parishioners, says that her sweet spot is just to be open to the blessings God wants us to have and to always be grateful. What we would say in the seminary, our rector, who's now a bishop in Arlington, Virginia, and he would say it in his Philly accent, having an attitude of gratitude. So to have an attitude of gratitude, so that's an important thing.
Yeah, that's also a South Philadelphia attitude.
Yes, yeah, that's why you said it. So.
Yeah.
So, any other questions? Any comments to anybody else? We'll give it a second.
Mm-hmm.
Let it cycle through.
Did Batman find a place to
I think
relax?
he's on the couch sulking and falling asleep. But I'm going to eat after this, so he'll be very interested in what I'm doing after this. I have a feeling.
I'm sure he will. We saw him the other night when he was carrying on at wanting a snack.
Oh yeah.
Said, oh my God, that's pitiful.
Yeah, he was pretty pathetic. He was. So kind of funny. Just a quick Batman story. So I'm setting up stuff for the novena. I haven't been with Batman a whole lot today, so I'm like, well, let me bring him over to church and let him be excited. Because he likes walking around and sniffing things, and he's good. Sure. Because we made sure that he did his business outside and not inside the church. So I forgot that the crying room is open. So what does Batman do? He goes in, and we have these little plush, arcs with little plush animals in them, and he had a plush camel in his mouth, and he knows that he's got it, and he knows that I'm going to be upset that he has it, and he wants to play. So I'm like, Batman, come here, give that to me. Let it, leave it. And then he's looking, and he runs, and of course he's on the marble floor, so he's spinning out, and it was hysterical. He had a really, really good time tonight, I think. So.
Oh, that was nice. He's a good dog.
So, Floss, do you have anything to say to everybody else? Do you have any final words, parting words to say to everybody?
Just thank you for listening to my story, and to keep the faith, and God will get us through it. And remember, we're never alone. He's with us at all times.
Amen. Well, Floss, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Father Rob. And thank you for giving me another step in technology to figuring this computer thing out.
And now you're set.
I'm determined. If somebody says I can't, or if I say I can't do it, I will do it.
That's wonderful. That's great.
I think that's a little bit of the German in me.
Patty's getting used to my beard. She didn't like it at first, but it reminded me a little of Abraham Lincoln, and he was one honest man.
No, I like it. It looks nice on you. It makes you look not older like in years, but more distinguished, I'd
More
say.
distinguished, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah,
Good
because we got a
night.
little gray coming in.
Oh,
And Judy says that
Judy. Hi, Judy. Thank you. She's another one that was prayed for me so much, her and Joanne. I miss them. And after we're out of this mess, we have to all go out to dinner again.
amen.
Yeah.
Okay, well, folks, we'll be back next week with a new guest. Floss, thank you so much
Thank you for
God bless you.
asking me. It's an honor.
And we made it 55 minutes. You'd be surprised. Like, what are
Gosh,
we going to talk
okay.
about? There's lots of things to talk about.
Yeah.
So
thank you, Father.
You're welcome.
And thank you, everyone, and have a blessed night.
All right, God bless you. This is Portraits of Faith signing off for another week. We'll see you next Thursday.
Bye.